There, I'm Peach Pie and I'm just going to do a quick tutorial video on how to get started in DayZ Standalone. I personally love this game. It's still in early alpha though, and it's not the most user-friendly game to get used to, so I wanted to do a quick tutorial just to show you some basics so you're a bit more accustomed to it when you come to play it. So we're starting off on the loading screen here. So the first thing you want to do is when you log in is to pick a server that you want to play on. So there are two different kinds of servers. There are public and there are private. Public, your character will persist across all of the public servers. So if you log in on one server, you get some loot, you log out, you guys have dinner, and then you come back and you log back in on a different server. Your character will be in the same place with the same loot, but on a different server. If you log in on a private server, your character is unique to that server. So you can see here it says that each server has a limit on how many players that they can have. So this particular one has a limit of 50 people, and at the moment there's 47. So if you came back and there were 50 people playing and you wanted to play on that particular server with that character, you'd have to wait until someone left. So that's the only downside of a private server. Also, the private servers are generally owned by clans or by people who reserve them for the people in their clan. So if you have a look through some of the names, so this particular one says private server. Some of them will say clan members only, things like that, and what it means is that if you log in, you could spend a couple of hours, getting your character geared up, and then they'll kick you off and they'll ban you from the server, which is their right because it's their private server, and then you've lost all of the work that you put into that character. So it's best just to have a quick check of the name just before you log on to a particular server. What you want to do as a new player though is to pick a public server and to pick one which doesn't have particularly many players on it, because the last thing you want to do is log in and get shot in the head 2 minutes after you've logged in, because you're not going to learn anything that way. So you want to have a look at a public server, one with few players. You can sort by how many players are on it. So we'll just have a quick look through the list, see if we can find a nice one. This top one actually would be fine. It doesn't say that there's any reason you can't join it. The ping's not particularly bad, and it's in the late evening, so it would still be daylight for a little bit longer. What I'm going to do though is I'm actually going to pick a private server, because I want one where I can show you a fresh spawn, and obviously my character's on the public server so we can't do that. So I'm just going to pick this one because it actually says all public welcome, which is a nice change. So I'm just going to log on to this server for now. So it may just be my graphics, you never know. However, whenever I log onto a server, it always takes my character about 10-15 seconds before I can actually move. So if I'm moving my mouse at the moment, it's not doing anything. Oh, there we go. Great, okay. So I've just logged in and I am a fresh spawn on this server. So there are two things you can play as, first person or third person. Every server is first and third. So what you can do is when you log in, if you want to play in third person, you press the enter button and it will zoom out so you can play in third person. So this is your character. Everyone starts, you can pick if you want to be male or female, you can pick how you start, but everyone starts with the same basic things. So if I press tab for the inventory button quickly, I can show you that you spawn with a t-shirt, some shoes, some jeans, and 2 items, a flare and a rag. So the rag's particularly useful if you get hit by a zombie and you're bleeding. You can use the rag, right click on it, and you can use it on yourself to bandage yourself, which will stop the bleeding. The road flare, however, at the moment I'm a fresh spawn, I don't particularly want to be drawing attention to myself, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So what you can do is you can just drag it from here to the vicinity, which is just the area around you. Just drop it in there and you'll lose it out of your inventory. You can see it there on the floor, so I'm just going to leave that there because I don't particularly want it. So if you just go back to the inventory screen, you can see that at the moment all I have is jeans, and these jeans have 4 slots, so I could carry 4 things that take up 1 slot at the moment. So you want to increase that. If you have a look around, if you find a backpack, if you find a jacket, things which have more slots, they're always helpful to pick up because that way you can carry more things. So I'm just going to close that for now. So basic controls, if you hold Alt you can scroll and just have a quick look around. There are zombies in this patch and there are other people, So you need to always be able to look over your shoulder because there could always be someone behind you. So pressing Alt and having a quick look around is always helpful. You can press Z to lie down in the grass and hide, X to crouch, and C to stand back up. They're always particularly useful, especially if you see a gunfight going off ahead of you. If you want to lie down in the tall grass and just sort of avoid the whole situation, is particularly helpful. What I'm going to do at the moment though is I'm a fresh spawn, I've got no food, I've got no clothes, I've got no gun, so I'm just going to have a quick look around in these houses and see what I can find, if anything. So, as you get used to the game, you get pretty good at scanning what's around in the area without actually having to go fully into the room. So at the moment I can see that there's a grey coat on the floor. So there's two ways of picking up things in the game. You can either hover your mouse over it, and normally it would say take in the middle of where you can see the cursor, but that's not always foolproof, as you can see. So the other option is you can press tab and you can see the things that are in your local vicinity. So I can see that there's a grey coat there, even though the game won't allow me to pick it up. So I can just drag that coat onto my character, and now I've got this coat, which happens to have 4 extra slots in it. So I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to keep that. Have a little look around in here. So there's not particularly anything else in here, so I'm just going to leave. Just going to have a quick look what's in this house, see if there's anything useful that I can show you. Oh, I've gone the wrong way around. Oh, a helmet. I'm going to take that. So just to equip things, you just drag it from wherever it is, on the floor, wherever, onto your character, and then that's it, that's yours from now on. So there's not particularly any loot up here, apart from a floating can of baked beans, which actually allowed me to take, which I'm quite surprised about. Generally things which are floating in midair are sort of off limits. Oh dear, I've gone the wrong way. So I'm just going to have a final look in this house and see if there's any other inventory we can pick up, just so you get the hang of it. If you're running and you see a fence, you can press the V button just to vault the fence. It has to be a short fence though, because your character isn't particularly athletic and you will get stuck. So great, I found a backpack. That's really useful. That's a really good thing to find quite early on, because it drastically increases the amount of things that you can hold. So now you can see this backpack has 20 slots, so I can carry an extra 20 things around with me, which is amazing. You can see from just when I hover over the items that each one has its own condition. So the helmet I picked up is damaged, the jacket is pristine, which obviously is perfect, the backpack is damaged. So up until damaged, it doesn't really have any effect on what the item does. If it goes below that, if it goes to ruined, then the item is essentially useless to you. So if I had a pair of shoes that were ruined, I'd be running along and my feet would be hurting, so it would be in my best interest to replace that very soon. But otherwise it doesn't really make too much of a difference, apart from to the cosmetics of the item. So you can also see from the screen that my character says at the moment she is hungry. So there are different levels of hunger and thirst. So at the moment you start off when you spawn as just hungry. And the more you run, oh, and don't vault, the more you run, the more hungry you'll get. And the more you run with the jacket on, the more thirsty you'll get, because the more dehydrated you get. So as your first spawn, your first priority really is to find food and water. So what I'm going to do is just keep running along the coastal town to see what I can find. So in terms of spawning, you will always spawn facing north. So if I spawned facing that way, I would know that I am facing north, because that's how you spawn. So there are only 2 coastlines in DayZ, so the east coast and the south coast. So if I spawned facing that, I would know that I'm on the east coast because I can see the sea to my right. So it's always good to have an idea of where you are when you spawn, because there is actually no map in DayZ. The only way you have of working out where you are is to either find town names. You can find signposts on town names, and then if you Google DayZ Generis map, there's an amazing map online which you can use, an interactive map which will show you all of the place names, so you can use that. Or you can also use the natural landscape, so you can see forests, you can see telegraph poles, I know they're not natural, you can see lakes, you can see the coast, and you can use all those things to work out where in the DayZ world that you are. The easiest thing though is the town names, so whilst you run up to a town and the signpost will be in Russian, you can cross-reference it onto the map and you'll be able to work out where you are and where you want to go. There are parts of maps in the game which you will occasionally stumble across. You'll see something which says that it's a map for DayZ, but it's the worst hand-drawn map ever. It doesn't show you where you are in relation to anything, it just shows you what the DayZ world looks like, but it won't actually pinpoint where you are on the map, so it's a bit useless. It's not worth your time trying to collect all the different segments just to be able to see something that you could just tab out to see. So I'm just going to keep running along and see if I can find anything, because what I don't want to do is starve to death whilst I've only been playing for a couple of minutes, because that would be a little bit annoying. What I will explain when I'm running along is that you can communicate with people directly in DayZ. You can just communicate with people that are in your local area. So if I wanted to press the control button, you can see a microphone come up. If you see that just next to my character, there's a microphone that comes up as I'm holding the control button. And what that means is that I'm broadcasting my voice to anyone that's within 50 yards of me. So if there was another player on the server who was really close, they would be able to hear me talking. So if you're running along with your buddy and you just want to talk to him, and you press the control button, you're having a conversation about what you're going to do later, where you want to go in the game, anyone within that vicinity will be able to hear your conversation. There's no way of controlling that. So just be careful if you're having a conversation with your friend on a populated server, there could be someone that's listening to you. There is another way of communicating without a microphone, and that is if you press the dash button, you can directly communicate with the same people in your vicinity. So it's the same principle. If you press it, it will type, and anyone in that vicinity will be able to read that message. So it's not private. There's no way of private communication in the game. You need to use Skype or TeamSpeak or something like that to communicate with your friends if you don't want people to hear you. So unfortunately I'm not really able to find very much in this town. Oh, a water canteen, so this is particularly useful. This kind of comes into what I was going to say next. So if I press tab, I can see that there's a water canteen which has 6% water left in it. So I'm going to take that with me, because what that means is that I can fill that up at any water well or at a lake or a pond, and I can take that with me and use it to drink if I'm running somewhere and I happen to get into an area where there is no water. I take that with me to keep me alive. Let's just see if I can pick this up off the top. Unfortunately the game is a little bit buggy sometimes, so even though I can see that there's a packet of dried milk on top of that wardrobe, my character can't, so she can't see it in order to pick it up, which is a little bit frustrating, especially considering I need to eat. Oh, there we go. Just mouse over it and take it, so that worked out quite well in the end. There we go. So I found quite a bit of food. I found something which doesn't really have very much water in it, so I'm in a little bit of trouble there. But what I'm going to do is just eat this dried milk, and hopefully that's not going to dry out my mouth too much and make me too more thirsty. Oh, it does say mix with water actually. I've never eaten dried milk in real life, so that was a bit of a surprise actually. Hopefully my character won't mind too much. Oh no, I'm still thirsty, but that's okay, I can live with that. So my character at the moment is yellow thirsty. So what happens is the more I run, the more I eat cereal or powdered milk or anything dry, the more thirsty I'll become. So really you need to have a nice balance between thirst and hunger. You can't just find loads of packets of rice and eat that all day and expect that your character's not going to want to drink something later. Oh, there's a nice little fence there. So I'm just going to have a quick extra look around the buildings here and see if there's anything useful that I can pick up. Because really my priorities right now are finding food and drink. Guns I'm not so worried about. There's not particularly much threat at the moment. There's If I just press the P button, I can see there's no one else on the server because it's just my name there. So I'm not particularly worried about running around without a gun because there's no one here to shoot me. Zombies are in the game, however, they are not anything to be worried about at this stage in time. There is a bit of a bug where if you can hear a zombie, they sound like they're a lot closer to you than they actually are. So you'll hear a zombie scream and think it's stood behind you, and actually it doesn't know where you are, and it can't see you. So that's just something to watch out for in the game at the moment. DayZ, despite how much I love it, does have a lot of bugs in it. Because I'm playing on a server on my own at the moment, you can't hear it. However, there is a bug where there are certain noises which get transferred across the server. So you can hear someone open a gate across the server, you can hear someone reload their gun across the server. My character's getting stuck on things, so I'm just going to take this machete with me, why not? There we go. Yeah, you can hear people reload their guns and make noises across the server. So when you're listening out to see if there's anyone else nearby, you can actually hear that sound from across the server, which is a bit unnerving at first, but you'll get used to it. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 sounds, but you'll get used to hearing them occasionally and just sort of blocking them out and learning when you can actually hear people. If there is actually someone nearby, if I'm in this building here, and there's someone running around outside, I would be able to hear their footsteps running around. Now that's what you need to be listening out for. Yeah, there's a lot of rubbish loot in here, but it is a barn, so I'm not quite sure what I was expecting really. I'll just go hit. Beautiful blue hat. And as you can hear, my character's a bit out of breath because I've been making her run everywhere, which is a bit harsh on me. So I'm just going to let her have a little rest for a second. I'll just let her crouch down so she can calm down. So I think I've covered a few of the basic things. The controls are a bit fiddly until you get used to them, but I don't particularly think it's hard to get used to them. You just need to be aware that there are certain things in the game which don't work as intended because it is an early alpha. There's a lot of times where I've been hiding in a building sniping at someone, and then I've been surrounded, and then I've put my gun down for some reason or another, and it's just despawned because that's just DayZ. So I'll put my gun down and actually I can see it out the window and it is spawned about a mile away. So there are certain things in the game which you will get used to. Unfortunately, it's not perfected yet because it still is in early alpha, but hopefully as the game gets closer and closer to beta, it will become more popular, which is why I thought I'd do this video, and then there will be more people to interact with on the server, which would be great. So if there are any more tips that you wanted me to go through, if there are any questions, hopefully I'll release another video with a bit more in-depth sort of guns and ammos and things like that. But if there are any questions you have, or if there's anything you think I haven't covered, then please just let me know. But hopefully this will be a very basic introduction for you to get into DayZ and find your way around the world. So thanks very much. Bye.